Welcome to the Observe Day podcast, the show where we celebrate the days that matter. From holidays to meaningful observances, we bring you inspiring conversations, stories, and ideas to make each day count. Whether it's raising awareness, learning something new, or simply sparking joy, this is your space to explore the calendar in a whole new way. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I'm excited to share today's observance with you. Let's dive in. Okay. Amy Lou Jenkins is an award-winning author, educator, and advocate for authentic voice. With a background in nursing and an MFA in writing, she helps people uncover meaning in their lived experiences and turn that insight into stories that matter. Amy's work is especially resonant around International Women's Day, a time when conversations about equality and empowerment can feel both urgent and commercialized. Having lived through silence, poverty, abuse, and the pressure to shrink herself, Amy now invites women to question the cultural scripts that taught them to be smaller than they are. Today, we explore what it really means to reclaim voice, not as a slogan, but as a daily practice of courage and belonging. Welcome to the podcast, Amy.
Well, thank you. I'm so happy to be here to talk about women, more than half of the population. How can we be a minority?
Who said that? Who said that? I was like, we really need to do some investigation to find who said that women are a minority.
Well, if you look at who's ahead of the corporations, we're certainly a minority there. Who's in the head of the politics, we're a minority there. So we're going to work towards equality in a better world.
When you think about International Women's Day each year, what feels personal to you about the dates, the celebration beyond the headlines and the hashtags?
Well, celebrating women is really celebrating families because, we all come from a woman. And that doesn't mean, women and men, the whole idea that we're equal, I don't know why that is so surprising, but, we're really not there at all. So in International Women's Day, I want to celebrate women, not just as individuals, but, um, each woman is important and women as a whole. If we were unleashed, just like anybody who
I
does,
like that word,
you know,
unleash.
yeah, unleash. If you unleash all the people who are suppressed to bring their best to the world, my goodness, what a great world it would be. So I think women aren't just about, oh, we want women's rights and everything equal for women. We want equality for everyone because there are a lot of talents and passions that are being suppressed that aren't improving the world. And wherever you live around the world, I bet your world is a bit of a mess. I mean, in the States, ours is a big mess, So
Yeah.
what if we all brought our best? We're going to talk about women today, but I just want to make sure that doesn't mean I'm, anti men or anti
Yeah.
anyone. We want everyone's best. And as a person who grew up in the United States, I read when I was younger because I was a nerdy kid. And I read, we had these transcendentalists like Emerson and Muir and Parker, and they really wrote a lot about your original relationship with the universe. Now, granted, they were probably talking to men and didn't think women were going to be reading this, but I decided that it was for me and
Okay.
that all of the cultural scripts that I was subject to as a child, right? Because you have no power. I remember wondering if one day I wouldn't have to live under these cultural scripts. Could I get beyond them? And for a long time, I didn't. And, because I was poor and the only thing I had time to do was to work at not being poor and eating and feeding my daughter. And I think a lot of people, the whole idea of working for equality is a dream that will come later in their life. And, sometimes all you can do is be free in your mind for right now, but take
Yeah.
that means something. And, I did get to the point where I could look further. And I did that through time and nature, through journaling and writing. And that's where I found a lot of my breakthroughs.
Wow. I'm glad you started the conversation by putting out there that an empowerment of women is not just an empowerment of women; it's an empowerment of the world. I mean, from what you've said so far, you're a mom, and you know what it means that I'm trying to imagine my at the time you had your daughter. What if you were not as empowered as you were that time? What if you were not literate? What if you didn't understand the world? Like you see, where the starting points of for your daughter would have been way low, and the same thing probably wouldn't have been having this conversation. You know, what if you didn't know anything concerning the podcast or even talking about or sharing your voice with the world? We wouldn't be having this conversation. And so empowerment is not just, oh, we were trying to empower women, we're doing them a great service. No, we're helping the world, we're helping humanity. Because if we help people unleash their potential, particularly women, what happens is that in unleashing potential, it's all about helping the world in one way or the other, whether they become an inventor, a scientist, develop the cure for cancer, whatever the case might be, or they make music, right? It's the world. And so helping women is not like one thing like, oh yeah, I'm trying to help them. It's like, no, I'm trying to change the world.
That's right. That's right. We are trying to, I don't know that I can change it, but I once, there's a writer, Barry Lopez, and he said, and I'm paraphrasing because he said it much more beautifully than I am saying it, but I was in a lecture with him, and he said that basically the world's a mess.
Okay.
People are there are people out there who are cruel. There are people who have more money than they'll ever spend, who will spend their whole life taking your money away from you, and that there are people who hate. But what he said is the best thing that I can do is make my life an exercise of leaning into the light.
Wow.
So
That's
if I
beautiful.
so if I can do that in my relationships, in how I talk to myself in my head, if I can do that with how I um, write a book, talk to you today, um, how I deal with the clerk at the grocery store tomorrow, um, I believe I can nudge the world. And of course, as a writer and someone who teaches writing, I also want people, when they're at the point in their life that they're ready, that they write their stories, not
Wow.
only for future generations, but when you write your story, it's not like you have your story in your head, but as you write it, you can see the themes. You
It
think you
unfolds.
know your life, right? You think you know your life and you think you know what you've learned. But as you write it, you find yourself more and more and more on the page, and you create a reality. A memoir or writing about yourself or writing a personal essay is a before and after story. We all think in story. So when we write or journal, if you're writing for publication or writing in a journal, you find the better version of you. If you're lucky, you find and you search for the values that you choose, because a lot of our values and the way we live are ideas that were imposed upon us. So what if we spend some time writing about, no, what values do I really choose? And then look at the times in our lives when we were living not in accord with our values. And if you don't find those times, then I think you're a liar because we
That was good.
yeah,
Wow.
I mean that sounds a little hard, but International Women's Day, I think that's a day to get real about who we are
Yeah.
and and where we're going. And
Yeah.
we have our chosen values, and then are we living, speaking, and acting accord with that? And you know what? We probably fail a lot, but having an aspiration means that you're going to keep getting better.
Well, since we're getting real, I'd love for us to address something very important. You said you once mistook compliance for kindness and silence for respect. When did that belief start to unravel for you that playing small is not helping anybody, not even yourself?
Well, I think for a lot of people, this whole idea of playing small at, can come from the household that you grew up in and the culture that you grew up in. And my parents are both gone now. And anybody who knows them, I'm not telling any secrets, but they were big drinkers. And often, if people drink a lot of alcohol, the household is volatile. So if
Yeah.
you live if you live in a house or in a community or under a government where doing the wrong thing or saying the wrong thing might flip a switch that is going to incite violence, you learn to be small. You walk
Yeah.
quietly. You speak
Be
quietly,
invisible.
right? Because maybe I'll survive. And I've just been writing a book that will be out later in this year called The Alchemy of Sass, which is, sass is being sassy,
Yeah.
not saying the right thing, right? And so,
I love that title. Before we dive deeper, I'd love to invite you to join the Observe Day newsletter. Every week, I send you highlights of upcoming observances, creative ways to celebrate, and behind the scenes extras from the shows. It's the perfect way to stay inspired and never miss a meaningful moment. Sign up today at observeday.com/join. That is observeday.com/join. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
and and I'm in my 60s, and I just figured out that it's that sassiness that saved me. That the times in my life that I went against the grain and said, "No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this. This is how I'm going to pull myself out of poverty." My my father was a very colorful character, and I do want to say they did a lot of good things for me too. But for instance, I
Yeah.
wanted higher education, and he said, he thought this was a compliment. "Oh, Amy, only ugly girls need college."
Ooh.
And because if you're good enough to attract a man, that's all you need, because you're just a woman, aren't you? He didn't say all those other words, but I knew that's what they meant. So it took me a long time. I always had to use my sassiness to speak up for myself, to get myself out of tough situations, to get a job where I could be paid a reasonable salary. But what took a long time was loving that voice, the voice of me advocating for myself. And I only did that by, and you used the word unraveling, right? I had to unravel all those lies, secrets, assumptions about about what being a woman meant, because well, first I went into nursing because I was told if I liked science and I was smart, women, you went into teaching or nursing and you were kind of shoveled in that direction.
Yeah.
And I had a long nursing career. I'm sure that I did, good things. I helped people. So I'm not regretting that. But that is another profession. You are literally tiptoeing into rooms, being as quiet as you can, right? Everyone else comes first, and that is appropriate in that role. But I took that all home with me because I had never had relationships with men where they wanted the boisterous, loud, noisy part of me. They wanted me to be their support. I went to work, I did the cleaning, I took care of the kids. You did everything, and you end up feeling bad about yourself because it's an impossible job. And you think that and for many women, we think that there's something wrong with us because we're failing. We can't balance it all. We can't do it all because it's impossible. So to have a busy life, to work hard, those things are all normal. But to feel bad about yourself while you're doing it, that's not okay. I mean, I don't think that we're going to do anything that we're all going to change our opinions. Women are going to be equal and suddenly our lives aren't going to be hard. Life is a series of problems and struggles, and you work through them and you try to figure out how to be happy and good to each other while we're doing it. But women shouldn't bear the burden of being the one that have to hold up everyone else and then being silent about their own needs, because we'll never be our best. I can never be the best person for my household, for my family, for my husband, for my kids, unless I am able to exploit my talents and passions. And I want that for every woman and for every man.
Oh, what would you say it's a misconception people often have about women finding their voice?
Well, the truth is, I'm glad you used the word finding, because one of the misconceptions that I often hear, and I'll even use it sometimes, and after I say it, I'll think, oh, that's wrong. It's about reclaiming your voice. Most of us never found it in the first place because
Uh,
because we were raised to be quiet, to put other people first. Uh, um, so we need to go back and think about when we were children, what were the things we played as a child, as a young child, and we loved? Some people might say, I spent hours on the sidewalk with my chalk. Someone else might say, and this was me, I was out trying to find trees and nature and tearing apart leaves and seeing what was in them. And even if I got a peanut, I would, tear it apart. And there was the shell and there were the two pieces. And what is that little thing in the middle? And then, learning about it. I was fascinated with reading, with every book. If a book was too hard for me, I wrote it down because someday it wasn't going to be. So and maybe your passion was roller skating and movement and going fast. And maybe your passion was shoes. You just love shoes. I, I
Yeah.
mean, I know, we think that whatever the thing we love is, like, some of them are worthy and some of them are not worthy, but the world needs all of those kinds of people. So, um,
Yeah. Wow.
if you think back to those passions, that was probably connected to who you really are. And I would say go back to those childhood passions and see if they still hold interest. They might not hold interest in the same way, but since most of us, especially women, got off course with what we really loved, go back to that point and move on from there and see what you love. Like it took me a while to figure out, some women love knitting and crocheting and beading
Yeah.
and making jewelry and stuff. Well, I would try that stuff. And then finally I got old enough to say, I don't like any of that. You know what? And it's not about me. It's about you. Oh, you made that. It is beautiful. I love that. It's so warm. I can, maybe quote to you Pablo Nerada's Ode to My Socks about how beautiful it is to have a hand knit pair of socks, that are knit with love. And I'll put them on and I'll feel your love every time you wear them. And I will worry about, oh, if I wear them, will I ruin them? And then that is connected to the whole idea of living when we have a limited time span. So your socks can mean so much to me if you're a knitter. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean I have to knit. So
Yeah.
when you figure out what you love, that doesn't mean you are not going to appreciate the gifts of other people. But I think women sometimes have a hard time with that. We do a little bit too much of what we're supposed to do. And I mean, when we're surviving and we're trying to feed ourselves and our kids, maybe you don't have time to think about all those things. But keep dreaming about them until you are able to make that a reality.
One of the key things you talked about, since we're talking about finding voice, and then we're like, oh no, it's not about finding voice, it's about reclaiming voice. But that's kind of really difficult when you're not allowed to talk in the first place, because now you can't even know, you don't even know what your voice sounds like. You talk about,
You got it. You got
you
it. You
talk
don't
about,
even know what your voice. Yeah, I love that.
you talk about cultural scripts. I like that. I guess it's a phrase that live in our
Hmm.
heads. How do those scripts shape the way women experience um, and also chase their dreams and potential? Because every society has their own form of cultural scripts.
Yes. Well, Um, I do it in two ways, and they're represented in my writing. My first book was called Every Natural Fact. And in that
Okay.
book, I did nature walks because when I'm out in nature, I am removed from, the cultural, uh, salesy, scripts and telling me who I am and what I'm supposed to be. And I'm interacting in an original way with the universe. So I find the time in nature. Now people say the quiet in nature. It's not really quiet in nature. There's all kinds of stuff going on out there. But
Yeah.
it's not other people telling you who you are. What you realize is that you are a human animal. So for me, when I spend time in nature, I can disconnect from what I've been told I am and then feel the interaction with the universe in a way to me that feels very spiritual. And it helps me connect with source. So I think time in nature, time away from human noise And I'll give you an example. In every natural fact, I go on hikes with my son at the time I'm moving into middle age and he's moving from childhood to adolescence. And the book is about us exploring all the questions that everybody has to ask anew. And one time we were hiking and we came upon a fox, and the fox had died probably a few weeks ago. And he was laying like a fox rug across the trail. And around his head was like a helmet of flies and bugs. And there were maggots and bacteria, and his flesh was almost undulating. And I kind of went, oh, and I backed up a little grossed out. And my son, he leaned in and he got closer. And then I got braver and I leaned in and got closer. And we looked at this fox and we could see that it was just buzzing. And so we walked on, and, in nature, you have time to be quiet and to think. And my son said to me, Mom, why were you so grossed out by that fox? And I said, I don't know exactly, but I think it's human nature for us not to want to die, so that when we see death, we're uncomfortable with it. And well, he said to me, well, when I looked at that fox, I don't think that the death was what was bothering you, Mom. And I said, oh, really? And he said, was it the life or the death? And I had to think about that. That's right. Was it the
Oh,
maggots, the flies? Those were alive.
yeah.
So,
Oh, that's a way to look at it.
so then we're having a conversation based on the natural world. If I had said to him, oh, life and death are connected, so we shouldn't be afraid of death and blah, 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 right? But I
Yeah.
go out in nature and we have the experience and we see it. Doesn't mean I have all the answers. It doesn't mean I don't want to keep living, but I see a relationship and I experience that. And I see a life force that was in the fox now animating these other animals. And I feel connection to something bigger than myself. So, finding out who we are, one of the ways for me is nature. And
Oh,
um, another
yeah.
way for me is to really look at my life and to do thoughtful journaling and writing. So in my my next memoir, which should be out later this year, what I did is I went through and tried to solve all the things that I wasn't supposed to look at as a child. The Alchemy of Sass is me unraveling the lies, secrets, and assumptions that underpinned my identity and what people told me I should be as a woman. Um, my parents and every adult who knew me knew that the man who was raising me wasn't my father, but I didn't know. I didn't
Oh,
know that. I didn't know who my father was actually until a few years ago. And there were other things in my life that were hidden from me. There were a lot of things, a lot of, I was told who to be, right? Are you going to be a nurse or a teacher? And I really didn't want to, that wasn't my passion. But that's where I could get a scholarship because I was a woman. That's how I could, I had to make a living. Okay, I can do this. I'll move ahead. And when I was writing this book and I took all the moments from my life that had something to do with my identity, and then I traced that. So the writing was really healing for me, and it helped me to create a story. And there was a moment in my life where I was a nurse and I was working very hard. I had worked my way I was a welfare mom while I was going for my first degree to be a practical nurse. And this is years later. And now I am in administration of a home care director of a nonprofit agency. And I have created a program that allows disabled adults, mostly paraplegic, they can't feel below the waist or the neck, paraplegic or quadriplegic. And I've developed a program that helps them stay home so they don't have to live their life in the nursing home.
yeah.
And it was very hard work. It was, just a part of what this agency did. But one of the big mucky mucks above me came and said, we're going to close that program, Amy, because it doesn't make any money. And I
Oh,
said, well, what about our Christian mission to serve these people?
Yeah.
And he said, well, the board's decided it doesn't make any money. And we weren't losing money overall, but I was so
Yeah.
upset by that. I was so upset that I drove home crying. By the time I got home, surprisingly, my husband was home and he was like, what's happened? I mean, I was doing the big ugly sobs. And I said, I think I have to leave nursing. I'm so upset. I can't do this. I'm trying to get the words out about how upset I am about what's going to happen. And without thinking, he said to me, well, what are you going to do? And I didn't have any preconceived notion. I didn't. And I said, I'm going to quit nursing and I'm going to go back
Oh.
to school and I'm going to study literature and writing. And he said, okay, then do that. And I did. So,
Oh, that's a different case. Usually they tell husbands that when a woman is crying about a problem, don't try to fix it. But in your case, he did fix it and it worked out fine.
well, because he listened to me. What do
Yeah.
you want to do? And he didn't
Yeah.
insert it. Now, this isn't how all our conversations went. But I
Yeah.
think on International Women's Day, if you're
Yeah.
thinking about how should I support a woman that I love, is what if you really listen to her and let her
Yeah.
pull from the depth? And the thing is with women, now that time it came out quickly, but sometimes women are so used to not being listened to that if you ask them even a simple question, maybe you're going to do something special and take them out to dinner. Now, this might sound trite, but I'll give you this example because I hear it and I see it over and over. Where would you like to go to dinner? And the woman is like, where would I like to go dinner? I'm used to thinking about what you all want. So she's in her head going, where do I want to go? And while she's still thinking where she might want to go, the man answers and said, well, how about, because he's waited a good 20 seconds, he'll say, oh, well, why don't we do this or that? And then the woman thinks, well, okay. It's a little thing, but she didn't get the time to think about what she wanted to do. And she's so used to putting everybody else first that she just caves. So it's not that women are weak. It's not that we're weak. It's that we have a great capacity to love and put others first. And sometimes we do that so much we lose ourselves.
Well,
So if you love a woman,
that's we shouldn't jinx it. That's such a powerful way to end the episode. It's
okay.
not wow. That we're supposed to add that quote to the Hall of Fames. Wow, that's a quotable moment. Thank you so much, Amy. It's been such a lovely conversation. I just didn't even know when the time ran out. I was like, oh wow. I was like, when she has not even said the first thing, and here we are. The time has gone. But that's what happens when you having a great conversation. Where can listeners learn more about what you do and also connect with you?
Sure. Please come to amyloujenkins.com. And right now, my publisher is allowing me to give you a copy of my book for a free download.
Yay!
Every Natural Fact. Yes. Yay. And you can join. When you get it, you'll be on my newsletter. I'll tell you about my writing. I can tell you how I can help you write. And we'll all work together to nudge the world for women and for everybody.
Well, thank you so much. I'll put the link in the description so listeners can just click and go there to the site. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, Amy.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's it for today's episode of the Observe Day podcast. Thank you for spending your time with us as we explore today's observance. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and share it with a friend who'd love to celebrate life special days too. Don't forget to join the newsletter at observeday.com/join for more observance stories, tips, and updates. Until next time, keep finding meaning in every day.